Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Metaports and the 14th Metaports and Shipping Summit. And I'm going to introduce the speakers of today. First of all, the first speaker will be Ms. Carla Salvador, then Marta Miquel, welcome, Philippe Guillaumet, Mr. Ravi Sabra, Thanos Pales, and Ralph Akuri. So welcome to Barcelona. Nice having you here. And I'm just going to give the floor to the first speaker, Ms. Carla Salvador. Just a few words to introduce you. Ms. Carla Salvador, she's the major regional she's the deputy of the Director General of the Port of Barcelona, and she's a specialist in commerce and marketing. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this session, and we hope it will be interesting to you. I will do my best. I will start, and thank you for giving me the honor to be the first one. I will start this session with an overview of the container shipping scenario. How is the Port of Barcelona living this situation? And let's put the first question. Is the disruption of the supply chain the new normal? Let's see. To start answering this question, let's go to the past. Let's go to the situation in the pre-COVID situation. First, let's analyze where we come from. How was the industry before that and the flows? As you can see here, the main flow is intra-Asia with more than 74 million containers. And the second two main routes is from Asia to America, the Trans-Pacific one, and Europe. And then the last one, the transatlantic one. So in the graphic that you see in the bottom, you will see the evolution of these three routes, and you will see that the Trans-Pacific and the Asia-Europe has grown dramatically and drastically during the past years. While the Trans-Pacific one the transatlantic one, that one what was very, very important in the 19th century, the trend has been very, very flat. Let's analyze that now, the actors. Which are the actors? And as you can see here, from a wide variety of actors in 1992, we go to very few actors in 2020. You can see here in the first file, it's that in 1992, many shipping lines, and at the end, in 2020, just 3 alliances with very, very few actors. With the 3 alliances that you all know, the 2M, the Alliance, and the Ocean Alliance. If we say it here in that graphic, which maybe it's more, you can say it better. If we do a zoom from 2015 to 2020, we see that the traffic, especially between Asia and the rest of the world, and especially Europe, is and has been dominated and continues to be dominated and under control of few shipping lines. So the offer is concentrated in 3 big groups with a high power of negotiation. Let's see now the size of the ships. From an average of 1,800 TEU per ship in many years ago, in 2000, so it's just 22 years ago. Now, in 2023, according to the order book, that average of TEU in ships will increase nearly to 5,000. So the size of the ships are increasing. Fleet is increasing also, but not drastically as the size. And for instance, in the case of Barcelona, we have seen that in 2019, we had no ships bigger than 20,000 TEUs. Now, and in 2019, we had 22, and last year we had 37. That means that we have more TEUs, more movements in every call. So we decrease the number of calls, but we increase the volume. So which are the challenges? Then what pre-pandemic challenges? The situation was, as we were saying, horizontal concentration, more container ships capacity being controlled by fewer lines, overcapacity. There were more offer than demand. Then rock bottom rates. In fact, most of the, well, some of the, not most, but some of the shipping lines, we saw some bankruptcies in the industry. So we were a little afraid of what was going to happen. Then inefficiency in the industry also, and they starting vertical integration to try to get some margins from everywhere. They were focused on that time, just 3 years ago, on kind of trying to find a source of competitiveness with best practices, making more and more bigger ships, and also digitalization. And the cruise lines before the pandemic were, the shipping lines before the pandemic were really focused on that. But supply chain disruption with the COVID, in the first phase, in the first half, we saw lockdowns that reduced the manufacturing in Asia, so factories closed. We saw also that some ships were stopped. If you remember in the crisis in 2008, there was more ships were also in layup because there was no demand. So at the beginning, the shipping lines said, "Whoop, stop ships." And then there were also the productivity of the ports, and even if we were working, and even the factories, if they were working, the productivity was not so much because of the COVID. Then in the second half of 2020, the demand start growing, and we saw that the industry was not prepared. There were no offer of ships. There were no containers, and the demand were growing and growing. And with an industry that we've seen that it was not very robust. So it was really a pressure in the logistic chain. Just the challenges, no? Just the summary of what we have been looking at. First one is lack of space and equipment. Second one is supply and demand imbalance, as we're saying, offer, demand, a big demand, not a lot of offer, the industry was not prepared. Lack of reliability, and we will go through all this during my presentation. I know that I don't have a lot of time, that I will be very fast. Increase in transit time, skyrocketing freight rates, and then uncertainty. Uncertainty, I think that it's the key word during those times. If we have a zoom in the demand, for instance, and the containers, you will see here, and here it's very clear that the demand go up, but then the industry had no enough ships to supply or to meet with this demand, and then there was a real pressure on the supply chain. Port congestion, and still port congestion, and with the COVID-0 policy in China is going worse and worse. We are waiting for the tsunami when Shanghai completely opens. So here you will see the number of ships waiting in ports. And in fact, when looking at the global picture between mid-April, nearly 2,000 container ships were waiting outside ports around the world. That means that it's 20% of the fleet. It has been completely blocked in ports. Let's speak about the reliability. It's clear that in 2020, reliability in June dropped drastically. And then if we look at 2021, the reliability was not more than 40%, which is really not good for the shippers. Here are the rates. Every time well, you see that the rates are growing and growing, and every time there is something happens in the industry, rates are going up. Here you have the case of Suez, Yantian lockdown, and if we look at every increase, you will see a reason for that. And then in the other graphic, you will see the margins of the shipping lines. Rates are growing and margins are growing. We have to say that shipping lines were coming from losses, from margins tending to zero. So it's now they are really recovering those tough years. Okay, current context. We still with a big demand scenario, with high container usage time. We think that the container, the rotation of the container, it's very, very slow. Instead of, it's 16% the rotation less than in a normal time. So that means that we have less containers available for shippers. And, well, the global schedule reliability still remains very, very low. So with losses of 16%. Main trigger factors here, more demand than expected, main route changed, carriers ship the blank sailings. Blank sailings are very, very typical in these times. COVID impact, the zero COVID policy in China. This is a vicious cycle. What's next? And the trade imbalance worsened again. More demand, no containers. And, well, and carriers benefiting from great margins that I was saying they were coming from very, very tough times. Looking at the future, well, we see that there will be more ships incorporated into the global fleet. You will see here 2022 arriving already in operation ships, in 2023 more, and 2024 more. So we think that that could help also to balance a little the market. And you will see here in those bars that you'll see that the red color, which is highlighting, that means that red colors are the bigger ships, not bigger, medium, but more and more medium ships are incorporated into the fleet with a capacity of 15 TEUs. So bigger than before, that the average was 5,000. Continuing with that, what needs to happen to recover? So it's this vicious cycle. What needs to happen? Very clear, lower demand traffic volumes. So it's to lower that demand. If now it seems that as we can go on vacation and we can do different things other than consuming material things, it seems that is going to slowing down. Breathing space to decongest some ports. Higher US inventories. You know that in the US there are really, they have problems on that. Slowing growth in container trade. Nearshoring, we here in the Med, we think that there is a big
opportunity for us in the Mediterranean to develop our industry, because more and more factories are maybe not ruling out the option of Asia, but at least having a second option in North Africa or in the Mediterranean. So I think that this is an opportunity for us. More shipping containers, the fleet is also increasing. Higher productivity in ports. We as ports, we have to work on higher productivity and better communication between all actors. And here we have the problems of shippers, because we have been talking about the shipping lines, about ports, but what about the victims of that at the end are the shippers, no? Are the importers and the exporters? Well, at the end, I have few time now, I think, it's uncertainty. They don't know. They're paying a lot, the service is not as good as expected,
and uncertainty when the goods are going to come, and this is really what they are suffering from in these times. This one I will not. As Port of Barcelona, what we are doing, and my colleague Marta will continue with that, but just to give you some hits here, we are working on transparency, giving information, and traceability. So we have different apps, the CTIA to trace your container, to give information about access time to the port terminals, improve also all the supply chain information about where the container is. We give all the details of the black sailings, all the information we have. Also the rail services, we bet on rail transportation in the port. So it's everything what we are doing till now is just give information to our hinterland, our importers and exporters, just to predict the transport and to help them and to give. We have a customer service that they are receiving more and more calls and giving information about the container and when the ship is going to arrive. So this is the situation, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Carla Salvador, after this very nice presentation. I have one question for you. Talking about these global macroeconomic and geopolitical trends, what's the impact of this that you explained right now on port platforms? I mean,
yeah, well, in fact, nowadays, we are in the middle. We are, in fact, in a global situation, and we suffer this situation locally. What we can do, it's something that we cannot control, and it will go. The world now is moving very, very fast, and ports we are not used to move so fast. I think that we have to learn to be flexible. Communication between all the actors, transparency, information to the shippers, and try to do differently because this is an exceptional situation. And now with the war in Ukraine, maybe there will be many, many things going on, and I think that ports have to adapt to those situations very, very quickly and with flexibility in mind.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will give the floor to the second speaker, Marta Miquel. She's from the European School. She is Chief Business Officer at the European School, Intermodal Transport. She's been working in training area for 7 years, and I think she's a specialist with a master's degree in shipping business in port management. Just the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Well, after Carla's presentation, there's very little to say about this crazy situation that we are facing in ports. And, well, I will try to see if we can find any solution to face these problems. And at the end, it's all of us who have to face them, and it's people who have to face them. So we need to have prepared people who can actually come with solutions to put an end or a great, better situation to the problems we have at the moment. So, well, at the end, Carla has explained what is the situation in ports, and actually it's a much more general situation in the whole sector, also affecting all the economies. It's a very transversal situation. And at the end, the ports are just part of these very, very big supply chains. And we have one single mission that is actually help all these companies to import and export and to be more competitive, especially in our local region. So we are a tool for competitiveness to all these companies and industries that try to develop, expanding themselves towards the world, or also trying to bring products or goods from anywhere in the world in order to perform their businesses. So at the end, port becomes a platform to give added value to all these businesses and to try to complement their logistic chains and their logistic solutions to come to a better port or to the final destination in that case. So in the port of Barcelona, having seen all this crazy situation, that was even beforehand, there were already some, before even the start of the crisis of the COVID that even worsened even more the situation. But we had to draft a plan because, of course, a port needs to have a strategic plan to see how they can serve the community that they have around them, because that's their clients, those are their main customers to which they have to serve. So we drafted as a Port of Barcelona a strategic plan with facing three main axes and focused on sustainability. Economic sustainability, in the sense that well, how much we can grow. At the end, we have industry and we have society around us that it is what it is. So we need to help them. We need to adapt to what they need. So probably, in that sense, it's not that important how many TEUs we move, but what is the value of those TEUs that we are moving. So how are these containers that we are importing and exporting giving value to the economy that we have surrounding us or around us? Also, environmental sustainability, in the sense that the ports are key elements in all these logistic chains, and we know that a logistic chain at the end becomes a carbon footprint also chain. So ports need to be more let's say, less impacting on this environmental situation that we have at the moment with climate change. And finally, also the social sustainability. So how the port is actually giving added value to the city around them, to the region about them, in terms of equality of opportunities, also giving decent job offers to the people around, and in that sense, not only giving value to the industries, that is, of course, the main objective of the port, but also giving added value to the people around in our society. So the Port of Barcelona drafted our mission that was to promote this prosperity in our community around, by improving the efficiency of the companies that we have in our society, in our hinterland area, with a vision, a smart vision, but not only from the innovative and digitalization point of view, but also being transparent, as Carla has said, resilient, and this has been especially proven with the COVID situation. Ports need to still work, to be still working, even if we have problems, if there are issues in the economies, or if there are any problems, because supply and products need to be moved around the world and need to be finally delivered to the customers. We need to be agile, in the sense that bureaucracy, of course, customs, they come in the way, but we need to be effective and agile in that sense. And we need to be also multimodal, making use of those transport modes that are more sustainable in order to become more environmental friendly as one of the main pillars of this strategy. We have said, of course, we can talk and say what are our missions, but of course we have to put it down in some concrete objectives, which are increasing the value. So from the economic sustainability perspective, we want not only to move more TEUs, but to increase the value of the goods that are being moved in our territory. This means that behind our port, we have a strong economy, we have a region that is productive and that is actually being more strong economically. we have to tackle all the environmental issues in the port, especially when ships are arriving, so trying to decarbonize the stay of the ships in ports by electrifying 50% of the docks with onshore power supply. But not only that is the responsibility of the ships, but also of the terminal operators to try to decarbonize their operations with the heavy machinery, with the cranes that they are using as well. And finally, and that's what I will be focusing on, social sustainability. So we want to have the people prepared, and the port has to be a place where people can work and can have a decent job opportunities. And that's why I'm here to present a project that we lead from the Escola Europea, with some of the partners being here also with the speakers, with the Port of Barcelona, with the Port of Marseille, and with the Chamber of Commerce of Beirut, in which we are training, we are helping the people to have the skills to be adapted to this crazy reality that is facing towards digitalization, towards environmental, and towards being more effective and more flexible to the situation that we are living at the moment. So the YEPMED project, which is a project in the framework of the NECVC Med program, European program based in the European basin, what we try to do is to match the skills of the people that will be incorporating or that have been working in the sector, that are reskilling themselves with the needs of the labor market. So what we try to do is to train them with these aspects that I just mentioned. We do it all together with the port communities that we are in the Mediterranean. We are 8 port communities set in 7 different countries in the area. And basically what we want to do is to improve the opportunities of needs, young people and women to find a job in this port sector, which is a sector with a lot of opportunities and that is changing every day, so we need every time more and more prepared people. How do we do that? So analyzing what are the current, but not only the current, but also the future jobs. So with the MedPorts Association, also here with Philippe, we did a study of what would be the future jobs that nowadays do not exist. So we also need to train people for those jobs that do not exist in order to be facing all these problems and this changing world. We need to define the skills, especially focused on digitalization, so smart ports, and also sustainability, applying the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And we do that with the development of a new training tool that is based on a simulation tool with a virtual simulator, so that students can experience, or participants can experience themselves directly the real life or a person working in the sector. At the end, we want to create or to make this region, the Mediterranean, a stronger region. As Carla said, it's a niche area now for companies reshoring to our Mediterranean area. So we need also trained people to help these companies be established in the territory. The skills that we need for these people being included in the coming years in the sector, we need digitalization, so people that can manage digital tools, also very focused or oriented towards environment and from a sustainability point of view. So as I said, it's not so much important how much we are moving in terms of volume, but how much we are moving in terms of value. That is what is giving us the importance. And then 3 main skills that probably that we need to work in these young generations, that is the use of English, international cooperation and trade, and also teamwork, because supply chains are a teamwork with each one of the actors that are confirming them. So we need to also be able to work in this sense. So to do that, we have developed a new tool in the framework of the YEME project that is the Port Virtual Lab, which is a simulator of the port situation. So we have the different simulated companies that are basically operating between one another in a simulated environment, and then the participants can immerse themselves, can practice directly with the daily operations that they can later on face in their real life. At the end, yes, reaching the end. So, well, with all this crazy situation, as I said, we need people who has to be trained, that has to be flexible, that has to be skilled to face these problems that they do not finish when the pandemic is over, which is almost over. But problems will come up the way, so we need to have people adapted and flexible to do that. And well, I hope that if you need more information about the project, if you find it interesting, we are here at your disposal. And we hope that with projects like that, we can have much better trained port communities that can serve finally the society and the companies that we have around us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marta, for your presentation. I have one question. You talk a lot about the skills. We saw different skills that young people, women, people participating in this project need. But there's a big question for ports. So what's the main challenge that ports find when they're looking for talent? Because it's not easy to find talent. Everyone is looking for talent. It's very complicated, especially big companies, big multinationals, and it's not easy to find. So what's your main challenge as a port to find this talent?
Yes, so, well, ports are facing this issue, and companies are facing this issue of finding talent. And sometimes we need, so that the talent is not found because there is not a direct correlation in what the companies need and what the academia is offering in terms of studies or, basically at lectures and things done at school, at university. So that is actually a job of all of us, not only trying the schools or the high schools or the university training the students, but also we need to have this merge of the companies with the academia. So I would say that it's not only a challenge coming from the companies themselves, but it's a challenge also for the academia to adapt to what the ports need, or the whole economy needs. So at the end, things like dual training, hosting teachers in the companies to teach them about the reality, to establish a fluent communication between companies and training centers, that is something that we need to work on in order to build this funnel that the students that are actually being trained can go directly to work in the companies because they are very well trained.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. I will give the floor right now to our third speaker, Mr. Philippe Guillaumet. Philippe Guillaumet is doctor in economic sciences. He's been working for many years in the Port Maritime of Marseille, where he played different roles and functions. And right now, he's project manager at the Port of Marseille-Fos, and he's the General Secretary of MedPorts since 2018. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon. With these two first presentations, we see that the port have to deal with very strong strange, and we are going through very difficult times, and we have to adapt, and we have to do that all together somewhere with a common project. So it's very interesting to have these two first presentations. I'm going to try to go deeper in these two ideas. Thank you for invite us to speak today in this important event and to give us the opportunity to present the strategy of the Port of Marseille in this perspective. And so how the Port of Marseille deal with these major challenges, and because our world is now totally crazy somewhere, and especially the maritime transport sector. So we have to work on it. As ports, historically, it is very simple. We were the interface between hinterland and the rest of the world. So in this sense, we have to adapt ourselves continuously to the world economic change, but quite easily. So we could see that now with the so strong changes, we have to adapt our strategy. And I think that the presentation of the strategy of the Port of Marseille could be a good illustration of that. I guess you know the Port of Marseille because it's not so far from here. But I'm going to give you some information about our port, not to make a commercial presentation, just to keep the main messages of each slide. On this slide, you can see that we have a very diversified traffic. It's important to be able to adapt ourselves to the change and the very important changes of the markets. So this is the first point. You see that we have liquid bulk, solid bulk containers. We reached some records last year, etc., etc. We have a very strong decrease of passenger traffic, as explained, because of the COVID, etc. But we have a diversified traffic, so we are able to adapt from the change of the different markets. First point. The second point is to talk about capacity. The Port of Marseille is the surface, total surface is 10,000 hectares. So it's bigger than the city of Paris. And for people like in Marseille, it's very important to be stronger than Paris somewhere. But more important is to say that we are able to provide to the market many different infrastructure, many different land to do whatever they want. If you want to make logistics, you can take some land and make logistics. If you have a project, an industrial project, you can set up in the Port of Marseille, etc. Again, the surface is just to give to the market the possibility to adapt themselves, to adapt ourselves to the change of the market. The last point is, like Barcelona, like other ports in Med, it's a world strategic position. We have in Med, in Marseille, but all the ports in Med have the same position. We have a very, very good position to connect all the dynamic markets, the old one, the new one, and the future one, for sure, because we are very on the main trade flow. It was explained by Carla at the beginning of our presentation. We are really a connecting platform and a connected platform between different continents. So it's important to have this in mind in Marseille, like in other ports in Med. So I said, and as I mentioned in my introduction, the Port of Marseille, like many ports in the world, has to deal with the paradigm change and the paradigm shift. Very important. During the last decades, the drivers of our sectors were globalization, demographic growth, trade-intensive growth, oil-dependent economies, etc., etc. You know that perfectly. Now, and for the coming years, the drivers are clearly the sustainability, the possibility to nearshore the production, the renewable energies. Connection and networks are now the master word of the new world. So it is not a secret. The world has changed, and ecology represents now an important place in our future and that of the ports. Concretely, we saw that in the Port of Marseille, because you know the Port of Marseille was an energy port, and for a long time, our traffic were dominated by the oil product. And to give you some just figures, we were, until 2015, the third import crude oil port in the world. So since 10 years now, we have a strong decrease of all this traffic. And so we have to adapt ourselves to this very strong change. And so I think, but this is the same for many ports, we have to deal with these changes, to cope with the difficulties and the emergency of the climate change. We have to engage a real triple transition. The first transition is quite simple. It's the economic transition. We have to find the lowest carbon logistic solution using the transport infrastructure, the intermodality, and the multimodality. The second transition is the digital transition. The digital transition will consist to connect all the networks, energy networks, logistic networks, communication networks, and so on, in a total network, who will help us to be smarter in all our decisions. In Marseille Force, we have a strategic role to play as we are one of the most important digital hubs in the world because of the data cable, submarine cable. And that is give us the possibility to develop a real ecosystem related to the digitalization, and for sure, a real dynamic in terms of smart port approach. And the first transition, and I want to focus a little bit on this first transition, is the green transition. Our green transition in the port of Marseille, and for sure in many ports in Med, is based on 4 pillars. It is explained in this slide. The first one is contributing to the decarbonation of the uses for shipping, industrial sectors, mobility. We have the example of OPS in Barcelona, is the same in Marseille, is the same in Valencia, Algeciras, etc., etc. The second pillar is stimulating and supporting the production of today's and tomorrow green energy. Photovoltaic, wind power, geothermal energy, green hydrogen, fatal heat, biofuel, etc., etc. We have to structure and encourage the circular economy and innovation, CO2 network, steam network, hydrogen network, and we have to push other innovation. And the last one we have already a little bit talked about is decarbonizing internal flows. It's very important. This is the 4th pillar of our green transition. So I don't want to take too much time, and I'm ready to answer to your question if you have. But to conclude, this triple transition corresponds to the evolution of what is a port. Do you remember I talked about a simple interface between the interland and the rest of the world? Now it's totally different. We are a connecting and a connected platform. We are the center of different hubs of innovation, of information. We are actor and a very innovative and disruptive actor, and we try to push all the port community to do the same, as a port authority to do the same for them. And I said in this slide, in a holistic view, I said by the study steered by the European Seaport Organization in 2021. Last word, please, Luis, just to talk about the possibility to deal with this transition or this triple transition. There is a possibility to stay in our own corner and say, okay, everybody is a competitor, we are in competition, I don't want to talk with my colleague, blah, 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 blah. Or the other possibility is to collaborate. And it was perfectly explained by Marta before. And so that's why with 20 ports, in 2018, we decided to create the Medport Association. The Medport Association now gathers 23 port authorities around the Med. We create a network and we try to promote the Mediterranean ports all around the world, but as well, we try to promote the common project to deal with all the changes, to cope with all the difficulties we can encounter in our practices every day. So That's why I want to focus on this Medport Association. I have the pleasure, you say that, Luis, to be the General Secretary, but it's not for that. Just to say that with cooperation, we could more efficiently deal with all the changes we have to face as a port authority now. I just give you this information, so we are more than pleased to come in Civitavecchia for our annual forum in the 7th and 8th July in Civitavecchia. So please don't hesitate to visit our website and or to ask me more information. Thank you very much for your invitation again. And if you have some question, I will be pleased to reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, Philippe. I was precisely thinking about Medports and cooperation, because we are here in Barcelona, in the Mediterranean. You know that cooperation is essential for us and for all Mediterranean ports. And I just wanted to ask you a bit more about this cooperation within Medports. So if we see that before we were talking about global trends and challenges in global terms, in the first presentation of Ms. Carla Salvador, and you were presenting the need for greening the ports. So my question is, could you give us some examples of cooperation within Medports so that we can see how are you focusing this issue of cooperation and how to face all these challenges and the greening of ports in the north, but also in the south of the Mediterranean?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Just to give just some example to reply correctly to your question. The first one, and it's in relation with, what Marta said, is about the training. We are supporting, as Medports, the development of different Medport training. And in this training, we talk about digitalization, we talk about green transition, we talk about supply chain and sustainable supply chain, etc., etc. So now we have a Medport training program since 2 years, and it's worked like this. The second possibility, or the second example for you, is the organization of seminar, where the seminar is not to give some solution, but is to create the condition of exchange of best practices between us. So you can learn from each other. And last month we had in Algeciras a very, very interesting, we have some representative of the Port of Barcelona in Algeciras, a very interesting seminar about the green transition. And so we have maybe 20 or 25 speakers in a day to explain the position of the shippers, the position of the shipping lines, the position of the port authorities, the position of the actor, just to know more about this green transition, but with different angles. So that's why we try to organize this kind of operation with the Medport Association to create the condition of a better, or an increase of the common knowledge. That's what we did, what we do in the Medport Association. Thank
Merci
you.
beaucoup, Philippe.
Merci.
Thank you very much. And I think that we have someone waiting online. I think it's time to give the floor to Mr. Thanos Pales, President International Association of Maritime Economists. I don't know if he's still waiting for us.
Hello.
He's online.
Yes, of course I'm here. I hope that you hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
My honor to be with you, and apologies for not being there sitting next to you, but some commitments did not allow me to be physically present in Barcelona. I am very pleased to talk after three speakers who pointed some of the major trends in the Mediterranean ports. I would like to try to expand a bit about the competitiveness and the challenges for Mediterranean ports. Actually, I would like to start with a comment which is a bit more positive. Things have not been so bad, or at least they were not so bad in the pre-COVID period. There has been a World Bank study in early 2020, obviously containing data about 2019. The important indicators suggest that in the Med, we perform quite well in some respects, and these relate to costs and the implementation of FAL and digitalization. There are other things related to infrastructure that there are room for improvement, and that's the regulatory framework, but also the development of the port community systems, which would help the whole supply chain in the containers to improve. But most of all, there is a need for improvement that's identified in terms of connectivity and accessibility, efficiency, and the addressing of regulatory problems. So I will focus a bit on these issues. Obviously, connectivity and accessibility is a gap that Mediterranean ports need to fill. There are different actors that have to be more active, more aggressive, I would say, in terms of investing, and that includes port authorities at the European side of the Med. The role of the European Union via the trans-European networks could be vital, but also third parties. And we need to create the framework to support these different parties to develop their activities. It's about access, maritime access and basic infrastructure, but it's also about the idea of digitalization, of creating networks with new technologies that would help the resilience of the system and allow the ports in the Mediterranean region to be really competitive with comparing to what's happening in the north of Europe, but also develop some networks with neighboring countries so that we have supply chains that maritime supply chains that can serve the entire region. And in addition, the environmental performance, addressing the environmental performance of maritime transport. All these need something that has already been said, coordination. I think that what ASCAME is doing with the chambers, the coordination of stakeholders is too important, as is the coordination of ports and the cities they host them. And a third parliament that should not be undermined because it tends to define some of the terms of the development of the port industry in the Mediterranean is the screening of foreign direct investments. There are quite a few questions that also relate to the current conflict in Ukraine, but also further on. So there is this need. Of course, to address this, cooperation between ports, but coordination with stakeholders is important. It's what I stressed before, the idea and the need to bring together all the different stakeholders and develop the answer in terms of infrastructure. The world is changing, and what is changing dramatically. It has been said by the previous speakers, but there is also something more that needs to be addressed, and it's long-term, beyond the temporal changes that have been created by COVID and the disruption of maritime supply chains. We need to think multimodal, something that is difficult right now in the broader Mediterranean region, and I would say both the European side, which is illustrated here, but also the North African side of the Mediterranean. In both cases, we have most countries suffering from the absence of a multimodal perspective, a multimodal vision. This is missing. We need to work, and ports, along with any related stakeholders or authorities, they need to work together to develop a multimodal approach. My home country, Greece, but also Italy, France, and Portugal are examples. Spain are examples of cases where the multimodal vision is not present in the apologies, in the European context. Having said that, excuse me, the case with port investments and the development of investments in the port needs to address some basic needs of shippers: predictability, consistency, and apologies. 1 second. I was saying that predictability, consistency, and fluidity of services is something that shippers demand today. That's something that is shared by very different headquarters of shippers. We need to address this. And to address this means that we should not focus as ports only on efficiency, not only in productivity, but also serve the needs of the shippers. An emphasis on shippers and the effectiveness should be here. Every assessment suggests that logistic disruptions are here to stay, and we won't see them going away very soon. But also, we know that the pressures, they have been already highlighted, and I will not expand further, either by alliances or the new configurations of maritime exchange, means that logistics and nothing should be taken for granted. We need to create and satisfy the users in order to facilitate the transportation of their goods, and the sooner we do that, the better it is. The world is changing. Recently, the International Association of Ports and Harbors published a report, what is called the World Ports Tracker. It was published earlier in May, where the latest trends suggest that we have a lower number of calls in the Mediterranean, but at the same time, without the size of the vessels increasing, we have bigger call sizes. Carla Salvador referred to that earlier. Call sizes increase, and this put pressures on the productivity of the Mediterranean ports. We need to address that, and that's the need to serve shippers' needs. This can be done via port community systems. It's the parameter that was identified before COVID and remains a question mark for ports in the Mediterranean region. Other parts of the world have done that better. In the Mediterranean region, we are still missing this trust, this leadership, this transparency that is needed in order for all stakeholders to be ready to consistently share information, transform data, and do that at a networking level. Cultural issues play a role, and that's where the collaboration of the actors is too important. That's where initiatives such as ASCAME or such as the one that referred by Philippe, Medports, can be really helpful in developing this holistic approach of developing the infrastructure and the communication between the different actors. Some might say that the importance of these changes, we can have a shortcut by adopting automation in order to improve performance and the competitiveness of Mediterranean ports. We know by studies and that the case of the different the automated terminals has provided benefits in some respects, but also in other cases, these benefits are lagging expectations because the anticipated benefits by the automation, either fully or semi-automated processes in container ports, has not always delivered the capacities and the benefits that was anticipated. So this can help. Technology can help, but it should not be seen as a panacea where we would expect by technology to help us address all the different issues. Cooperation is the main thing, and I would say that we see direct cooperation between ports in different places. Italy is an example where it happened to happen from an administrative perspective. That's not only the daily functions, but also strategic collaborations. And I think that also Marta presented some very good examples how cooperation between ports can develop beyond the strategic or the bureaucratic way through programs and projects funded by the European Commission. And I think that this is a way to go forward. Perhaps not regulatory as it happened in Italy and has created some admittedly significant issues, concerns, problems, whatever we call them. There are questions there, but otherwise we need associations or networks, we need programs to develop this collaboration. I'm very, very pleased that I have seen the previous speakers sharing this view. The final point. Somehow, and it happens to be that recently, it has been highlighted by different headquarters that we keep, as a shipping and export industry in the Med, we keep being among the dirtiest ports comparing to our peers and to our other ports and so on. We should not undermine that ports need to do their own homework in order to be able to serve the public and address the environmental issues. It's not that everything is going to happen by the regulatory initiatives, either at IMO or the European Union about decarbonization and so on. Work has to be done at port level. I don't suggest that here we see a list of what has been reportedly been the top 10 most polluting EU ports. I don't say that this is what it happens, it's that how it is portrayed, and that means that to gain this social license to operate and not have meeting challenges because of that, ports need to keep going and do their own homework and gain stakeholder management, fulfilling regulatory challenges and questions, energy transition, but data sharing is too important. These are my messages. Thank you very much for the invitation, and once more, apologies for doing that via the use of technology and data sharing rather than being physically present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Thanos. Thank you for your presentation. I was listening very carefully, and I have one question for you. When you were talking about the Mediterranean and main problems, you talk about connectivity, accessibility as one of the biggest issues, no? And in your presentation, there was like a line, close the gap with the rest of Europe. I would like to ask you, if we had to take some measures, what would be for you the first 3 measures to close this gap with the rest of Europe?
I think that a first issue is about the multimodal approach of port development. Mm-hmm. It happens in few ports in the Med, but it does not happen in all ports of the Med. When we have, for instance, in North Europe, we have ports that have applied modal vision, modal splitting requests by several terminal operators, by ports that when they develop, they include this dimension in their approach. That would facilitate the case of having a more service-oriented perspective rather than limiting the productivity improvements in the terminal. That's one thing. The second thing, I believe, it's the integration of stakeholders. That's why I think that we all, in this afternoon, we stress the importance of collaboration and coordination of stakeholders, but also ports. We need to improve the way that we work. For instance, recently, if one looks north, Antwerp and Zeebrugge decided to merge. Before that, Rotterdam and Antwerp collaborated in developing some data sharing that are in a productive way for the users. Things are happening, so we need to go that way. So I would say these 3 things: the multimodal vision, the coordination of stakeholders, but also the cooperation between ports could facilitate. We are not really bad in terms of physical infrastructure. Of course, upgrades are needed, but we're not missing capacity, but also quality of infrastructure. There have been projects in the Med in the recent past. Whether we look in Spain, whether we look in my home country in Greece, but whether we look in Morocco, there have been different places. Whether we look further on, and I think that we'll have a next speaker who will also present some improvements that are planned and so on. So, infrastructurally speaking, we're not so bad.
Thank you very much for your advices that we really appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right now, I'm going to give the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Ravi Sabra. Ravi Sabra is Director General of the Chamber of Commerce of Beirut. Please take the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to take part in this panel of distinguished speakers and audience who looks in my eyes very tired after a long day of presentations. That's why I will try to be as much quick as possible and prompt. I will briefly introduce the EPSOMED project and the Beirut Chamber, including the E&I projects related to port logistics and transport before I talk about the Port of Beirut blast, its effects, and future prospects. EPSOMED is a project financed by the European Union and coordinated by BusinessMed, the Union of Mediterranean Confederation of Enterprises. The EPSOMED consortium includes 6 members, including ASCAMI, the Association of Mediterranean Chambers of Commerce, and aims at promoting investment and job creation through increasing the capacity of business support organizations from 26 countries. The Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture of Beirut and Mount Lebanon is a non-profit private organization working for the public benefit. It was established in 1887. It is the largest and most influential business organization in Lebanon that gathers the Lebanese economic organizations, which include the main professional entities representing the economic sectors at the level of the private sector. The Beirut Chamber plays an important advocacy role defending the interests of the private economy and offers a wide array of services to member MSMEs, including certification of origin for exporters, ATA and TIR carnet for transport facilitation, trade statistics and market information, training programs, arbitration and mediation services for commercial disputes. Additionally, the Beirut Chamber is an active partner in economic development projects, namely funded by the EU. The Beirut Chamber is a key partner in many E&I CBC Med projects that cover the various domains, including port logistics and transport. Marta talked lengthily about YEPMED, which I'll skip to talk about TechLog, which aims at strengthening ties between academia and the transport industry within the port ecosystem in the Mediterranean area through joint technology transfer initiatives and the creation of a Mediterranean Innovation Center for port communities. It also encompasses setting a virtual web-based platform for research centers in the maritime industry with port operators, building simulation workstations and pilot projects. It's worth noting that the Beirut Chamber is only one of the rare non-ports partners in these projects, which include counterparts like the ports of Marseille, Barcelona, Valencia, and Escola Europea. Going back into history, Beirut has been a prosperous port city since the 15th century before Christ, with its port being a major center for trade and naval activity in the Mediterranean. Beirut city traces its history back to the ancient Phoenician traders and later evolved into a prominent city-state of the Ottoman Empire, where it became a central hub of the French trading network referred to as Les Échelles du Levant. This slide shows how the port was an integral part of the old city of Beirut, with its former medieval wall in red color. The port is rooted into the city's urban fabric and is an important element of its identity. The port of Beirut is 100 meters away from the city's most densely populated neighborhoods. The strong relationship between the port and the Beirut city transcends the limits of the territorial proximity and encompasses economic, cultural, and social considerations. Hence, the succession of prosperity and decline over centuries have affected the state and activity of both the port and the city in a similar manner. On August 4th, 2020, a massive explosion took place at the port in a warehouse adjacent to the grain silo located at the western dockside area of the port. The impact of the blast was so powerful that its shock waves were felt in Cyprus, 240 kilometers away from the site. It produced a 140 meters wide crater, destroying part of the port and severely damaging the dense residential and commercial areas within 5 kilometers. The disaster left more than 200 people dead, 7,000 injured, and 300,000 displaced, reflecting thus the demographic clustering of the Lebanese population and economic activity in the port neighborhood. It is worth mentioning that the grain silo, which is considered as a notable civil engineering work made of reinforced concrete and built to withstand high pressures, acted as a shield and attenuated the effect of the blast on part of the city. This slide shows in red color the extent of damage severity within a radius of 5 kilometers around the blast. Following the explosion, the World Bank Group, in cooperation with the United Nations and the European Union, steered a rapid damage and needs assessment to evaluate the damages to the physical assets, the ensuing economic losses, and the reconstruction needs at the level of the public and private sectors as well. Damage was defined as the replacement value of totally, partially, or minimally damaged physical assets with a maximum value of $4.6 billion. The housing sector was the most affected, totaling $2.3 billion, followed by culture at 1.2 billion, including heritage sites, then tourism at 200 million, commerce and industry at 125. Losses were estimated in the flows of the economy that arise from the temporary absence of damaged assets. The maximum value of economic losses amounted to 3.5 billion, with the housing sector at the highest level, reaching 1.2 billion, followed by transport and port sector at 700 million. Lebanon's main trading activities occur by sea, air, and land. With the advent of the Syrian conflict in 2011, land trade was hardly affected as border crossings between Lebanon and Syria were closed. Hence, sea trade has accounted for 2/3 of total trade, where the Beirut port was the main gateway for the Lebanese market. The economic and sanitary crises have led to a regression in total trade by 16% in 2019 and 25% in 2020. Yet total trade witnessed a 17% growth in 2021, resulting from the increase in total value of imports and exports. Worth noting that these values represent the total trade except fuel products. Thus, Beirut port has drained over 80% of the country's total external trade and transshipment operations, while the Tripoli port handles the remaining portion. The Beirut port statistics show that the total container volume reached 1.3 million TEU in 2018, following an annual growth rate of 8% during the preceding 14 years. However, ensuing the combined crisis and port blast, the container throughput dropped by over 50%, where the local cargo registered a slight increase while transshipment decreased significantly, as shown in the slide. This drop reflects the sharp decrease in domestic demand on imported products, ensuing the economic crisis. Lastly, on last February, the worldwide shipping group CMA-CGM was awarded a 10-year concession to manage, run, and maintain the container terminal following a bidding process. The group has led down an investment strategy to modernize the container terminal with the newest management, optimization, and interconnection systems, taking into consideration the environmental criteria through the selection of green and eco-friendly equipment. CMA-CGM aims to transform the container terminal into a state-of-the-art facility that meets the best international standards. The proposed port redevelopment would help shape Beirut's financial and social prospects and would drive Lebanon's future recovery. The company's endeavor reflects the determination of the Lebanese private sector, who, despite the recurrent hurdles, has never lost in rebuilding the country and has always thrived to turn challenges into opportunities, exactly like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabra, for your presentation. I have one question about the recovery of the Port of Beirut and, of course, the impact in Lebanon economy. We saw that the port, in fact, ports are platforms. Ports are not just the port and the hinterland, and this port is very close to the city, and it affects a lot the city and the rest of the country what happened. So if we talk about future, and we talk about future and socioeconomic development of Lebanon, what do you think is going to be the role, or could be the role, of the port of Beirut at the time for the future socioeconomic development of the country?
If you allow me, Louis, I don't know if there is a possibility to involve our audience, break the ice a little bit. Since I have esteemed colleagues coming from Lebanon, they did this long way to here. We have Mr. Latouf, who is the president of the Syndicate of Lebanese Freight Forwarders, and Mr. Aoun, who is also a CEO of an important logistics company in Lebanon. So I would like to give the hand to my colleagues so that they give their insights about your question, despite the fact that I have the
yes,
answers.
of course. I don't know if we have a microphone. Okay, we're just asking for a microphone, and with pleasure, of course. We can take advantage of
Mr. Latouf, you can go up on the stage if you want.
There's no problem. Just go on, please. Or the microphone is coming.
What was the question again? The future prospects of the Port of Beirut following the blast.
Thank you very much. It's a surprise that Mr. Sabra is involving us. We are happy to participate. Beirut, well, is very much affected by the sanctions of Syria, of course. In the past, we were a transit point to Syria and Iraq and potentially Jordan, as you know, because Beirut is closer to Damascus than the Latakia port itself, and closer to Amman than Aqaba itself, and closer to Baghdad than the ports of the south. So having Syria having the sanctions, now we are at a disadvantage. We hope that within a few years the sanctions will be lifted. Meantime, what we can do is to reconstruct the port as quickly as possible and to ease up the bureaucracy and customs formalities which are making it difficult to use Beirut as a hub port. And if we can do that, then we can serve the East Mediterranean area through now the incorporation of CMA using Beirut as a hub and serve the ports of Mersin, for example, Cyprus, Izmir, for example, and maybe some ports of Egypt. Although we will need some time to do that. We don't have the infrastructure. We are a long way now. We need electricity. We need to reconstruct all the warehouses, the systems. So it's not going to be easy, but we are working on it.
Okay. Thank you. I think our other speaker.
I like to be more positive.
Okay.
In fact, I see in every problem an opportunity. The fact that we had that blast, it's definitely a disaster. But I loved the presentation that was there because you talked about smart logistics hub. This is pretty much how we see the port of Beirut can be. And we talked about paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift is really moving from where we were into the new world. So digitalization, sustainability, and turning Beirut into a smart hub. Personally, I see Beirut as a transshipment hub because it's very close to the city. I like also when you talked about the social responsibility. So we want people to come from Beirut city and work in the port. And this is something that we need to work towards it. We have a port in Tripoli, which is 80 kilometers, that is a bit far from the city density of population. So Beirut, Tripoli port can be the transshipment hub, the transit hub to go to the neighboring countries. Beirut port can be the transshipment hub. We can create opportunities for the local people working in Lebanon and in Beirut to embrace the port of Beirut. But all this will require a real paradigm shift, digitalization, sustainability, a change of what we are doing. And I presume that the fact that CMA is coming to manage the container terminal will add value and will allow us to do all these things. Definitely, it's not easy. I understand, my friend, because we're living in very difficult situation. But if we have a clear vision, and I really appreciate what Barcelona Port is doing. It's pretty much the drive to make things different, and this is what we need to focus on.
Okay.
If you allow
Thank
me,
you.
Louis, to add
Go on,
2 points. It is important, since the port of Beirut is inherent to the city, it is important that any development of the future development of the port encompasses environmental and urban standards, because it is within the city. And also, we had a problem with the management authority of the port of Beirut. We would like the private sector to be part of this new authority and also to be a major player in the port operations, logistics and transportation. Thank you.
I would like also to add one thing which I forgot, because you were talking about the green energy. The Beirut blast has also opened an opportunity for us, because we don't have too much electricity from the government now, is to invest in photovoltaic energy. And one of the warehouses that I have in the port, we have supplied it with solar panels and photovoltaic, and we are totally independent now on electricity.
Bravo.
Okay. Well, thank you very much to our Lebanese speakers, and thank you, Mr. Sabra, for suggesting their participation.
Bravo.
Thank you. And sorry for the last speaker. I'm just going to give you the floor, Mr. Raf Fakouri, engineer, mechanical engineer, and Vice President of Green Marine Services. Just the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I would like to start. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having me also. I will speak about the Mediterranean port and the changing world that we are facing now in nowadays. Green Marine Services is the company that I am the vice president at, and furthermore with Beirut Port and Mediterranean Port, and how to be more sustainable in it. Green Marine Services is a reefer service center with over 30 years of expertise in marine engineering and refrigeration industry. As we are a reefer warranty service center to all reefer containers and manufacturers across all Lebanon. Our staff and customers are in marine field only. Customers are the owners of ships and marine agencies. Our team comprises marine engineers and all been accredited from the manufacturers and have completed worldwide courses and training to be on a safe side for their services, quick and high quality. As we are a repair center for multinational firm, we work under worldwide rules for reefers and regulations. P&I, Lloyd's, and Container Owner Association has approved green marine services for order services. The company has gained international trust, as evidenced by ISO 9000, internal quality audit, and the ISM code certificate from Bureau Veritas also. Our services. We are a reefer service center, so for that we monitor, we report all the reefers on the terminal, as well as plugging, unplugging, and pre-tripping all the reefers, empty reefers before starting their trip. We are a reefer mechanical maintenance and repair, as well as steel work for dry and reefer containers. ISO tank and Flexi tank is also our supply services. And as we are a reefer service center, we are also a mobile service 24/7. Our services doesn't only depend on reefers. We go for marine consultancy, marine survey, and we supply ship spare parts for marine owners, and we are marine engineers, and we repair all the ships if requested. This is the Port of Beirut. The Port of Beirut is one of 10 most significant ports in the Mediterranean and has long been regarded as the entrance of the Middle East. The Port of Beirut is positioned in a key region that connects the commercial market of Asia, Africa, and Europe, minimizing the time of commercial navigation journey when compared to other ports. In addition to providing the connection to 56 ports on 3 continents, the Port of Beirut trades commodities with 300 other ports around the world. As for the operation of the terminal, Beirut Port contains 16 STS, 36 RTGs, and have a volume of more than 1.2 million TEU per year. During the Beirut blast was very highly determined for the port operation and for sure for the capital, Beirut. But the current rebuild and effort represent an opportunity for the Port of Beirut to have a better port infrastructure and to be updated on the way that would accommodate the needs of the 21st centuries. Here is the Beirut before the blast, and here is after the blast. And I would like to add for my fellow Lebanese that this kind of blast may be the problem, we can turn it into the solution, which we can make this access to a very high and big ships because it's very deep because of the blast. We can turn it into a shipyard that is contain very big ships. As the Mediterranean port and way to the sustainability. While technological innovation and economic model are shifting their focus towards sustainable and economic growth, resulting in structural industrial changes, the port industry has still not caught up with the weight of the future, remaining largely unchanged in the last 3 decades. For instance, the majority of ports continue to primarily rely on fossil fuel, which emit carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxide, and green gases. Sustainable ports do not consider environmental friendly factors only, social and economic ones as well. By adopting environmental friendly operation, Mediterranean ports would increase their productivity and boost the economy of Mediterranean countries. The way to sustainable ports. How to make ports more sustainable. Supplying energy source for docking ships by improving the port infrastructure. Alternative fuels such as liquefied natural gas may be used instead of fossil fuel. Ships parked at port can also connect by the electrical grid, which reduce emission of green gases and oil spill that associate with OPS. For example, in San Diego, in the US, they have gone with this plan, which has reduced 56,000 metric ton of green gases emission. And they started it in 2014. Big data is to improve the efficiency. Ports are packed. Ships sit idle for hours, waiting to discharge their goods. This results in excess of fuel and increase the possibility of oil leaks. Employing big data and predictive algorithm to optimize vessel scheduling and avoid stack up significantly boost port productivity, save time and money, and reduce emission. Third, upgrading port equipments. The majority of port equipment were designed to run on fossil fuel. By using renewable sources such as wind, sun, and wave to power port equipment, crane, forklift, and vehicle, which currently run on diesel, would be updated to run on a cleaner and lower emission fuel. The lower dependency on fossil fuel will also serve as a proactive caution against the volatility in prices associated with fossil fuels, as the ports in India that have 60% of its operation running on wind power. Improving waste disposal. Being thrown into the sea, ballast water and other ships' waste can be treated. Ports can enhance their waste management system without endangering the marine life or the environment. The port water and sewage system need to be upgraded to decrease pollutant, regulating emissions, and decreasing litigation costs. As for the port automation, by automating cranes and other potential dangerous equipment, cargo unloading efficiency increase, transportation costs will decrease, as workers are no longer exposed to activities that endanger their safety. Digitization enhance port efficiency, security, and sustainability. In Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, they started automation. By control room, they run all the port operation, terminal operation, as well as in Rotterdam, they started using softwares to run also that. As in here in Spain also, Port Al Jazeera Bay has started called by Al Jazeera Brain Port 2020 also, which is a new port management, and it's toward digitization also. And this is the contact, and thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much, Rafa Kuri. I just have one question for you. We've seen before the effects of the destruction in the port of Beirut. I guess that your company was placed there. And what were the measures that you took as Green Marine Services after the blast of the port?
Well, this is a story that was a bit scary for us. Half of our team was in the port when this happened, and the other was in different location, in Bekaa actually. So once the blast has started and we saw that there's something unnatural that is happening, we directly got all the team together and started with an operational room for emergencies. And from here to go to the containers, to reefer containers, to inspect after the blast all the containers and all the goods that are in the containers. This took us around 10 hours to monitor and to repair all the reefer containers that had been damaged. We are talking about live cargo. We are talking about containers that are full and active, not the empty ones. The empty ones were inspected afterwards directly. Sure, but this was a big things to do because you needed to have permission from the Lebanese authority to go inside. You have to cooperate with the marine agencies also, and it was a big thing with this big blast that happened. But thank God we got everything in hand and all the live cargo were saved.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
Well, it's 5:15. I think we're in time. And I don't know if the public, well, we don't have a lot of public, but if anyone wants to ask any question, Mr. Stefano Bonfa, please, the microphone. I think there's one microphone over there that they can. No, don't worry. No, they will give it to you. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Stefano Bonfa. I'm still based in Oxford at the university. Now I'm developing my own company, and what we try to do is very interesting. Listening presentation, especially the last one. The European Union is moving now to the concept of community energy or community anything related. So what is interesting, the case of Beirut is very interesting cases where you can develop using, I do not say big data, I will say community data-driven approach on developing renewable energy for the community. This is business community. This new concept, this is the new economy that in Europe start to emerge. I think in Mediterranean area, this is very useful. If you think in terms of ports, for example, if you have a community-based, data-driven approach in a multidisciplinary, let's say, concept, framework, energy, water, industry, etc., you have been developed an innovation from the bottom up. So in other words, who is driving the development is the data. If the data is on the hand of the community, then you can do many things that government is not able to do. We are proposing a project now under the name Mission in the European Union, and that's why I'm here in Barcelona discussing this new concept, and that's why I'm here also in Ascame, because I did present this concept 6 years time ago, but we lost it in the way. Now it's very popular. It will be interesting to have, I don't know, Port of Barcelona or anything related in this experimentation, they call it. They don't call it project, they call it, you develop new experimentation, new innovation, something that is not done before. That is the aim of the project. And then you also, the countries like Mediterranean countries can be involved and receive, funds by the European Union. UK cannot accept it because it was on the Brexit. But if we, through Ascame and your cooperation and the same project you have, we can include some kind of experimentation with your support because you are on the right track. That's what I want to say.
So
Thank
your
you.
question is a business proposal. Is that it?
But, is community business proposal driven by data. This is the paradigm shift. Yes.
We'll see if Ascame can lead this this offer. If there is an opportunity for collaboration, why not?
Why not? Why not?
Thank you.
We need to discuss it. Why not? Thank you. More questions in the room? Okay. If there are no more questions, I just want to thank you, our speakers, thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. And I think, thank you, okay? Thank you for coming. Gracias.